Apologies, I wanted to get to this a lot earlier, but without further ado, let's do it. It's Buffy Season 4 non-spoiler. I think my reading of this season is it's slightly better than Season 3. I know Season 3 is a much more fan favorite, but I think the Strong episodes, the Whedon episodes, the Faith episodes, the Willow episodes, and some of the Spike episodes are those more focus on those characters are really, really strong. However, the other side of the table is this probably has some of the weakest and also politically most offensive episodes probably in all of Buffy. It's really, really out there. I think whether you're left or right, you're going to find a lot of stuff to complain about. And usually I'm able to separate the two, but here they really go in some places so far in both directions. They're really, really mind-numbingly stupid, and they just detract from the overall season. And the episodes themselves with a lot of that content are just not very good themselves, and so it just keeps getting lowering the score over and over again. However, the average is still pretty high because the good episodes, even some of the okay filler episodes are fine. The problem is that some of the filler episodes are just so terrible they keep dragging down the score. So it's a very mixed record. But I think overall, Adam's a pretty good antagonist. I really enjoyed his philosophical monologues and how they finally defeat him. I thought he was a very, for what he is basically a Frankenstein knockoff. But I think, within the boundaries, I think I appreciated how they wanted to expand the mythology. I think the major problem here is, which you can't avoid, is Marty Noxon, who took over as producer. I'm sure she's a good writer and producer elsewhere, but here it was just a very terrible fit. And they also had a lot of behind-the-scenes drama, which I'll do very quickly, which is that they lost Seth Green because he was doing Austin Powers. They also lost the actress who's doing Maggie Walsh. She was supposed to stay on there longer. So they just had a lot of behind-the-scenes drama, and I think the Noxon turn just didn't help. So overall, a strong season. It also has some of the best, probably, Buffy episodes of all the seasons. I think numerically, probably Season 5 has the most best episodes, but this I think actually comes in close to second, because this is really finally we get Buffy. This is really the image of Buffy that people think about when they think about Buffy, this kind of blonde California girl who's very sexual, who's very powerful, who's very witty. I think one of the things you appreciate is the humor here finally reaches its peak. They're really finally getting a good rhythm with the show, and they strike a pretty good balance between the irony and the sheer inherent silliness of the whole thing without going too far. And I do appreciate that they sort of played around with Buffy both sexually as well as thematically, right? She's playing sort of a James Bond character because they have a big theme about spies and government conspiracies. And if you're a longtime viewer, you'll know this has sort of been there in the background for a long time. We sort of got a preview of government conspiracies in Season 1, and so you're kind of waiting for the shoe to drop because, with all these dead bodies and vampires and monsters, you've got to think, how is the government not monitoring this or at least intervening? And they finally get to it. I do think the initiative is a very flawed attempt, and they just didn't do a good job with casting Reilly and a lot of the other initiative. I think Adam balances it itself out, but I do think they made some major mistakes. That said, I don't hate Reilly. It's just he's pretty much a dead weight. He seems to be sort of just a female fantasy figure. And again, to some extent, Buffy is a male fantasy figure, so, I can't complain all the way. I just think he wasn't utilized very well. There are just some entire episodes really that are pointless, where he just, in one case for instance, he just gets really paranoid and accuses Buffy for no reason, and they're just alienated for the whole episode, but it makes no sense at all. So it's just, Reilly himself as a concept and his character is fine. I don't mind that, they're basically giving some things to the female audience. James Marsters takes off his clothes quite a lot this season, so they're placating the female audience, and that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. It just, at certain points, it really interferes with the overall themes and the larger storylines, and it just doesn't feel balanced. It doesn't make any sense, and Reilly as a character is just too weak, and some of it's not Mark's fault. I mean, he's acting alongside James Marsters, who's a much better actor and who did years and years of theater, so anybody who acted against him would also feel, pretty kind of weak and not bringing a lot to the table. So I think they probably should have done a different casting for Reilly. Mark is fine in the Buffyverse, but probably not as Reilly. And Noxon admits this, that they basically did pick him because he's just very tall and handsome, and Sarah Michelle Gellar, doing scenes with him. So it's sort of like, okay, it looked good on paper, but I just don't think it was well executed. That said, where my criticism mainly fall is it's tonally way too chaotic. I mean, I get it. This is Buffy in her first year of college, so to some extent that's in the themes. It just felt the writing wasn't as assured in the other seasons. So where the good episodes are good, they're very cohesive, but where it's really bad, they're just dragging the stories along and they don't really go anywhere. But we do get a lot with the minor characters like Willow, Spike, Xander. We at least fill out the world a lot more. And I do appreciate them trying to mix the genres of, the international spy. There's a lot of Kubrick, a lot of Dr. Strangelove. going on in the background. And we also have some nice little minor treats. For instance, Pablo Pascal just shows up. There's a lot of people, a lot of big people who show up in Buffy, but yeah, there's quite a few big people who show up in season 4, and they just do kind of a walk on roll like Kal Penn and things like that. And so you're like, wait, is that who I think it is? So yeah, there's some really neat little things that you can appreciate with the season now, right, that you're looking back on it. But overall, it is structurally very flawed, and I can't avoid blaming Noxon for that. And Whedon chose Noxon. I'm not going to go into the rumors that they had affairs together or whatever, but it just feels like he probably should have stayed on a little bit longer, because at this time he's more focused on Angel, but he still did a lot of stuff on Buffy. But I'm just going to call out one episode in particular without spoiling it, where Spike, we just find out Spike has something or does something, and essentially most of the episode contradicts what we just learned. So if you're being Mauler, you're going to be utterly bewildered at just how insane that is and how contradictory it is. And they know it's a contradiction. They tried to fix it, but it's still glaring. So yeah, they did make a couple of big production mistakes, a lot of big political mistakes, a lot of big aesthetic mistakes. Still, overall, the Faith episodes, the Jonathan episodes, the Spike episodes, and especially Willow. Willow is really probably the one that gets the best characterization of all. But they're focused way too much on Buffy, and I think they made it just too much of a fairy tale kind of centric themed in this season. And within degrees, I don't mind that she is the main character, but I think they just went a little too far. But they end up strongly. The final episodes are really well done, and Restless is one of the really great episodes. You can watch just a little bit of Buffy and appreciate it. You don't really need to watch even entire season. You'll get a lot out of Restless. So it's a very flawed season, but I still think it's a little bit better than season 3. A lot of great treats, but a lot of horrors and a lot of terrible stuff. So if you see it for the first time, you can just speed past those once you see it for the first time and you're done. And just linger on the good episodes. And I think overall, the costs are reasonable for it. I'll do a more slightly spoilerish to give out, I think, the better episodes, perhaps, in terms of Buffy, but that'll be sometime in the future. All right, this has been a non-spoiler discussion of Season 4 of Buffy. If you like the content, please hit the like button and/or subscribe. Please consider supporting the work on Patreon. Please comment below. I'll take all criticism. Thank you for listening.